All right. This is a good segue here. Again, we've got Legendary Drops video here. They're taking over games and nobody stands a chance. We were just talking about Marvel Rivals, so this is perfect.
I need you guys to make sure that I'm not losing my mind, that I'm not seeing things, because from my perspective, it looks like all the games the players are the most excited for, the ones that they're enjoying the most, the ones that they're talking about the most, the games that have been the most.
I think what they mean is sorry, not China specifically, but kind of Eastern games.
Successful outside of a couple of outliers. I'm not saying that it's all of them, but they're all coming from the East. Elden Ring, Pal World, Tears of the Kingdom, Armored Core 6, Monster Hunter, Resident Evil, Black Myth, Wukong, Space Marine 2, Pal Ring that they're talking about the most, the games that have been the most successful outside of a couple of outliers. I'm not saying that it's all of them, but they're all coming from the East. Elden Ring, Pal World, Tears of the Kingdom, Armored Core 6, Monster Hunter, Resident Evil, Black Myth, Wukong, Space Marine 2, Marvel Rivals, Final Fantasy, and I already know that I'm going to enjoy Stellar Blade.
So it's just like back to the old console era before.
Once it releases on PC. Now, I'm not saying that all Eastern games are great and all Western games are bad. No, there's definitely there's a handful of good games in the West. Believe me, I put 400 hours into Baldur's Gate 3, but with that said, the list is
good game.
Very short on the Western side of things. And I think this is something that the vast majority of the industry doesn't want to discuss, especially games media, because, well, it means that they're losing relevance. Western games are losing relevance by extension. Western media then loses its relevance as well. There's been a cultural shift over the years where players are not being prioritized, but
we know exactly why this happened. And it's not just one thing. It is a lot of one thing, but I'm not going to be so crazy as to say that it's 100% because of woke stuff. I think that is one of the things that is causing it, but it's actually kind of related. It's in general the abandonment of Western game devs of actually caring about the player and what the player's interests are, instead caring about their own interests, whatever that may be, whether it is a political interest or it's a purely monetary interest. The passion of the creation of the game and it almost feels gone. That a lot of it is just kind of mass marketed, mass manufactured for whatever developers' agenda is. And by agenda, I don't mean just woke stuff. Again, I said monetarily as well. The whole part about making the game for the sake of making the game and for making something fun that people will enjoy is not the primary thing. It's almost like they're trying to distill, like, okay, how do we maximize giving them just enough of what they need so that they pay us? And then let's fill it with other shit that they don't want. And I think just the tolerance levels of players of putting up with their bullshit to have a little bit of fun is just getting lower and lower.
But these Eastern studios are prioritizing those audiences, and as a result, because that cultural shift doesn't happen over there, well, they're taking advantage of a situation and they are skyrocketing in popularity. They're gaining more players, they're gaining more influence, and
want to be movie directors.
They're
and they just want to be movie directors,
which makes them a major threat to the rest of the industry. We're talking about heading towards a world that has a heck of a lot more Black Myths and Marvel Rivals and a lot less Dragon Age the Veilguard and Concords. That's not good for a lot of people in this industry, I'll tell you that right now, because, well, as these Eastern studios continue to be successful, as they're able to produce way more games than a lot of these Western studios because of the financial position many of them are in, well, their investors are going to turn around and ask them, why aren't you doing that? They're going to say, well, we can't. But before we get into that, Monster Hunter Wilds is right around the corner, and with it is coming some of the craziest PC specs I've ever seen required. So you guys could use today's
PC ad
sponsor, Starforge. I've been loving my new PC from Starforge Systems. It's incredibly quiet, sleek.
These are the guys that have the free run one, right? They have a free run freaking computer.
It's a way better build than I could do myself, and they've got something for everyone. They got Horizon PCs, which are
dude, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want the free run PC. I want the case. But then I thought about it and, like, can't I just put a decal? Can't I just print a sticker of free run and just put it on my computer? I could just do that.
For your everyday gamer, much more affordable, and just great for a first-time user or even experienced players. You can kick it up a notch. Go into their Navigator series that are packed with
it's not the
components,
same.
giving you some truly high-end performance. But
Ultras, does the free rent computer tell you to isekai yourself? Dude, if it did, I would definitely buy it.
If you're a content creator or an
It's
enthusiast,
like you turned on the computer and it just said
me,
that.
well, their Voyager series
Oof.
has everything that you're going to need. Star Forge has a ton of incredible customization options with PCs and
God, it looks so good. Doesn't it look good? It looks so good.
you really want to customize,
I want
they
it.
got limited run designs, plate lights, desk mats, and even posters to match your setup. Every
Will?
PC is hand-built in Austin with premium quality and attention to detail, plus a 2-year parts and labor warranty. Starforge Systems, premium quality, white glove service, and all of it at an accessible price point. Follow the link in the pinned comment or the description below and check out Starforge Systems and find the PC of your dreams. There is a clear divide between games made in the East and those made in the West, and I found myself enjoying more Eastern games more and more, and I know that I'm not alone. You don't have to look that hard to see the difference. Eastern games are thriving while Western titles are drowning in complaints, controversy, and creative stagnation. These studios and publishers
Creative stagnation is the problem, really. That's the main issue.
get it. Culturally, they get it. They
Put it this way, Baldur's Gate, it lets you have gay sex with all the characters. You can fuck a bear in that game, and like nobody gave a shit. Nobody cared. No one real cared about that. Obviously, there's a couple people that cared about it, but most people didn't care because the game was good.
understand what players want, and they're delivering it without compromise. I boot up Monster Hunter, Black Myth Wukong, Final Fantasy 16, and it feels like peak is the only thing that they care about. They want
Did you say fuck a bear? Yeah, you can fuck a bear in Baldur's Gate 3.
you to experience something that is unforgettable. They want you to be blown away by the scale, spectacle, and raw excitement. I'm tracking down monsters and I'm fighting them and crafting armor out of their bones in Monster Hunter. Their developers painstakingly research ecology to make sure that they can create a realistic ecosystem that feels alive, while at the exact same time, they're not making that their only priority. They're also delivering stylized combat that you'd only find in anime. I'm walking through China's cultural history, experiencing one of the oldest stories ever told, and fighting literal gods in Black Myth Wukong. I'm experiencing
Black Myth Wukong was sick.
upheaval and a world-ending crisis in Final Fantasy 16, but every moment builds to something bigger.
God, I
The
haven't
stake
played any of these new Final Fantasy games. Like, maybe I should. I haven't played Final Fantasy since Final Fantasy. Well, I played 14, like the online one, but I haven't truly played a Final Fantasy like standalone game since the one where you dress up. There's like the one where like with the girl from Final Fantasy 10
New
and you
priority
dress up
fuck a
into
bear
cute
in
outfits.
Boulder
That's the
Gate.
last one I played.
the music, the sheer unrelenting spectacle. I go from trying to find the truth to fighting a dragon in space that is about to unleash a laser to destroy the world. Then we look at games like Ninja Gaiden, Resident Evil, Stellar Blade, an entire industry of gacha juggernauts unapologetically delivering cool, badass, and attractive characters. These studios are not afraid to give players what
Zenless is really good. It's a really good game.
they want. Whether it's over-the-top action, ultra-stylized designs, or characters that are as powerful as they are attractive. Western games, well, they've been moving in the opposite direction. The androgynous, desaturated, corporate-safe designs that plague Western titles, nobody's asking for that. Certainly not the players, certainly not women. I see countless 2B cosplayers, but, you know, I haven't seen a single person willingly dressing up as Abby
That's
from The
true.
Last of Us Part 2. So I guess we might see some Concord cosplays this year. But you know, it's not just the aesthetics, it's the priorities. Eastern studios are focusing on the player experience. It seems like the only thing they actually...
That would be actually hilarious. Like, if it were back in the day, I would totally do that. I would totally cosplay a Concord character just to troll.
care about. They're not obsessing over realistic sweat physics in a first-person shooter. They're making sure that the controls feel incredible. They're not wasting time on irrelevant tech demos. They're refining gameplay mechanics to perfection. They aren't ballooning their budgets to insane proportions for the most useless things. They aren't trying to be Hollywood. They're trying to be video games. I've been replaying Armored Core 6, and it's one of the most visually stunning games that I've played. But here's the thing. It's not chasing photorealism. It's designed in a way that tricks you to feel like it is. You're so immersed in the gameplay, so locked into the experience that you don't care about environmental destruction or ray trace reflections because the game is so damn good that you don't need those things. Then I go back to Western triple.
I don't think graphics matter, to be honest. I think people would disagree with me on that, but I think that they don't matter that much. I think the gameplay is the only thing that really matters, and then any graphics looking good is just icing on it. It's just icing on the cake.
Play games, and what do I get? A checklist simulator or a tutorial that assumes that
Who wants to eat icing in a bowl? You eat icing because it accentuates the cake, not because you want to eat the icing.
I've never touched a controller before. A protagonist that will not shut up, constantly telling me what to think and what to feel. A game world that exists only to make a point, not to be explored. And their obsession with open world bloat, because why make a game?
Some of the best games back in the days had no graphics. Some of the games I've spent the most amount of my time in had no graphics at all. It was a fucking chat box, and you typed north, east, west, up, down, forward, /goblin. Some of the games I spent the most time had no graphics.
Feel big when you can make it look big. Western developers want to force you through a message. Eastern developers want you to lose yourself in the experience. They aren't holding your hands through a painfully self-important narrative filled with stiff, corporate safe writing. They're letting you engage with a world that feels alive. Eastern games are just built different. That's why
You played MUDs? The old school MMOs. The OG MMOs, man. Well, the reason why is because you can't play World of Warcraft or Ragnarok online at a school on a school computer. Like in the library, you can't play those, but you could play MUDs in those. So, like on my lunch break, I would go play MUDs. You're not gonna freaking bring an install disc to school.
they are
Thank you for the
dominating
follow,
and
Kendall.
they're
Thank
gonna
you.
continue to dominate. It's going to make it harder and harder for a lot of these Western studios to be able to stay
Did you play
relevant.
Meridian? I didn't play Meridian.
Now, Japanese games being popular isn't anything new.
I did bring an install disc to school, and I did play Ragnarok online at school, but it was still harder because you had to get that specific computer that you had installed it on previously. Otherwise, it took you forever because you had to download the data for the patch. So, like, the install disc would install the base of the game, but then you wouldn't get, like, the entire game. So you would have to patch, and patches took forever on school internet. So MUDs were basically the best in terms of, like, actually playing an MMO at school. So that's the reason. Well, Counter-Strike, Wolfenstein, and StarCraft is different than a MMO.
In many ways, Japan is what built the foundation of modern gaming. If it wasn't for Nintendo dragging the industry out of the gutter in 1983, well, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation.
I remember my friends were like, yo, I got the good shit. I got the Ragnarok Online installation CD. Yo, you have a copy of the... You have the
Take it's not
Ragnarok
just the
Online
problem to push the message,
installation
but to have every
CD?
game pushing the
Yeah,
message
man,
and
I got
being
it
the
from
same
Anime
boring-ass
Expo. Oh,
message.
shit. Oh, shit. Can I borrow it?
But we're not just talking about Japan. It's China, it's Korea, and beyond.
Flamey says, hot take. It's not just the problem to push the message, but to have every game pushing the message and being the same boring ass message. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, well, the thing is, it's not integrated into the game usually. It's just kind of out of nowhere.
Having this conversation, but we're not.
Oh yeah, Newgrounds, and all those like free arcade websites. Gunbound was the shit right there because everyone could play Gunbound.
Out of the gutter in 1983. Well, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation, but we're not just talking about Japan. It's China, it's Korea, and beyond. Apparently, nobody took notice that 2024 featured an entire wave of Eastern studios stepping into the AAA space, shaking up the industry, and forcing Western studios to confront the reality that they're not the only game in town anymore.
Yep.
And I noticed this shift when I saw
Competition. This is why competition is good. Gets people off their asses.
Mobile studios start to step up into the AAA premium game space. Take Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. This was a game by side.
This game was so good. This was the best
Games,
game.
a studio known for gacha games like Grand Blue Fantasy and Shadowverse.
The best. This was one of the best games. This game was so good.
Why would they suddenly decide to make a AAA, full production, full-priced game unless they knew it was a smart investment?
To be fair, they were working on this game for fucking forever. We were all waiting for this game for years. Like half a decade waiting for this game to come out. And then it came out and they were like, everyone was like, take our money. Keep the game going, please. We actually, you know what? It'd be great if this game was actually, I'd be okay with it being live service. Please keep the game going. More stuff. I want more raids. I want more things to do. And they're like, nah.
Unless they saw
And we're
an
like,
area
no.
of opportunity. Turns out they did, because Grand Blue Fantasy Relink sold 1 million copies in just 11 days and it has still continued to sell, and the players loved it.
Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, I used to exclusively play this game. If you actually look at my channel, so if you look at the channel here, and you actually go back in time, you will see that I played nothing but Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. That's what the entire channel was about before. So see, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, and it was a bunch of Grand Blue Fantasy Relink videos. See, like new hero, like how to play different characters. I did a bunch of guides for this game because I was pretty good at this game. Like I was killing bosses that were wiping 4-man teams solo. I was crazy in this game. This game is good. If you haven't played it yet, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, highly recommend it. You can get it on Steam. I play the mobile game as well, and actually the fighting game just announced my favorite character, so I'm so hyped. I'm probably gonna play a little bit of that as well.
Then it happened again with Stellar Blade. Shift Up, another gacha-focused studio, jumped into AAA gaming, and the result? Another massive success. A game that sold over 1 million copies. It's likely to outsell its PlayStation numbers entirely once it actually launches on PC. Modders are going to have a field day with this one. Then a first-time Chinese studio delivers a AAA cultural masterpiece in Black Myth Wukong, a game that shattered Steam's concurrent player records and sold 20 million copies in 1 month. It was bold, visually stunning, deeply rooted in mythology, blending diverse storytelling techniques and cinematic cutscenes, and had exhilarating combat that just kept you hooked. It's tight linear progression.
I did actually one of my first, I guess, politics videos was a video on Cagliostro and on Grand Blue Fantasy, because I think that the way that Grand Blue Fantasy handles diversity is way better than like the West. I did an entire video on it if you haven't seen it yet.
Light yet meaningful customization stripped away any necessary bloat. It just offered a pure content-rich experience that pulled you in and refused to let you go. And who could forget Pal World, allegedly made for under $7 million, reaching 25 million players with 15 million copies sold on Steam. A game that crystallizes.
It's because it was an interesting game. That is exactly what everyone wanted. They wanted Pokemon with guns, and that's what they got.
Everything players have been asking for, what they've wanted, the freedom that they've wanted. Finally, we saw the release of Marvel Rivals, storming onto the scene with stylized characters. Great.
Their Hello Kaiser says, I don't like the trend stuff at all, but the community for the game doesn't sound preachy. Oh, no. The community is like pretty good. And on top of that, there's something for everyone. Like there's so many characters in the world that you don't have to play those characters if you don't want. That's just how it is.
Great gameplay, killer performance, non-intrusive monetization, and overall just a fun experience for players that helped the game reach over 600,000 concurrent players on Steam with over 20 million downloads across all platforms. With the success of these games...
Yeah, the thing about the Guilty Gear thing that was like kind of weird is like the character... So that one doesn't even make sense to me. Like Bridget, that's not even what Bridget's story was. They literally like hijacked Bridget's story and then like transed it basically, because it literally wasn't the story. The whole point of Bridget dressing up as a girl was because of the stigma of like their village. You weren't supposed to have identical twins. That was the whole point of Bridget dressing up as a girl, is that it was supposed to be a curse if you had identical twins. So then they basically pretended that Bridget was a girl and then like hid Bridget away. And then like, so that whole thing is weird. Like to actually make that into a trans character is weird, I think.
The shift is undeniable and it's not slowing down. 2025 is already shaping up to be another massive year for Eastern developers. Monster Hunter Wilds is going to explode, potentially breaking over 1 million concurrent players on Steam.
I still like Strive. It's a good game. It's just, it's interesting that's what they did with it. And again, like, I don't know. I just think it's weird that's, and again, like I said, I like Cagliostro. I like La Diva. So it has nothing to do with that.
Easily see it. I mean, Monster Hunter World quintupled engagement across the entire franchise, so there's no telling how far this new entry can go. Players are already excited for Phantom Blade Zero, Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, Light of Motrium, and Tides of Annihilation, all made by Chinese studios stepping up to steal the show. And after seeing all these successes and the engagement that I'm seeing from the players, how excited people are for some of these games that are coming out, I think that Eastern studios have figured out what Western gaming has refused to accept. That the layoffs, the cancellations, the flops aren't
Also, Granblue Fantasy had the psycho lesbian. Psycho lesbian. She's fucking great.
because gaming is dying.
I love
Players
her.
aren't leaving
Vera?
games. They're leaving Western games. They're seeing an industry that's at war with its own audience. They see the greed, the arrogance, and the creative bankruptcy, and they're stepping in to, well, take what Western studios have abandoned. And I think that the industry is threatened by this, and they should be, to be honest with you. I mean, look at the way that games media reacted to some of these releases, because while Stellar Blade reviewed relatively well, it wasn't without controversy. Heck, they actually had to write an article to tell everybody, why is Stellar Blade so controversial? Are attractive characters unrealistic? Female beauty standards in gaming need to evolve. I'm sorry, but saying that beauty standards need to evolve is like saying that gravity needs to be more inclusive. You can try to change reality all you want, but
You
people will
can't.
always
You can't change what people like. People like what they like, and although that does change throughout the times, who are you to tell a person what they should find hot or not? It's ridiculous. The whole idea that you should be able to dictate to another person what they're attracted to is stupid. It's stupid and ridiculous.
be drawn to what they find appealing. That's it. And then came Black Myth Wukong, and that's what they absolutely lost it. Developers not responding to the accusations that they made up, not responding to their headquarters being vandalized because of the accusations they made, not answering questions about inclusivity in a game about a monkey. That's when it became painfully clear. The industry is terrified of these rising Korean and Chinese studios because they can't control them, so they attack them instead. The only controversy surrounding these games was fabricated by media outlets desperately trying to reinforce their own narrative and their own.
I think it's a little unfair though. I get banned for saying monkey in Discord, and they literally make a game called Black Myth Wukong with a monkey in it, and they don't get in trouble.
Own worldviews. And it became laughably obvious once reviews started rolling in for Black Myth Wukong, with multiple critics slamming the game for a lack of female characters and diversity, not realizing that women played a key role Act 3 and beyond. I brought this up before. I think I showed it off in one of my last videos, but it still blows my mind that Inverse would straight up call anyone who bought the game Chinese nationalists and anti-woke. Let that sink in. Look how detached from reality media has become. Fun action game, no political messaging, monkey with the big stick go bonk. Yeah, that's fascist. This is about an industry that is panicking.
I'm so tired of the freaking fascist and Nazi like insult. It's so
publishers
annoying.
and media have spent the last decade trying to dictate what players should want, and now it's backfiring. Eastern studios aren't arguing with their audience. They're just giving them what they want. Hell, I just saw that Marvel Rivals had planned to do mid-season
Yet you
ranked
call me
reset.
one? Okay, but I'm not. I mean, am I really like how far am I from wrong on that one compared to how far it is to call me that? I think it's a lot closer. Okay.
The players said no, and Marvel Rivals just said, okay, that's fine. I think that's what a lot of the industry has gotten away from. Not what games should be about, not what games should be, but who games.
Guys, Julio is from Chile and has family members that immigrated to Chile from out of country. Makes you wonder, you know?
Games are for. Eastern studios, pretty much across the board, are just doing a better job at recognizing what players want and are giving it to them. That's what you need to do to succeed. A lot of Western developers and media are just so caught up in today's events and politics that they're forgetting that players are playing games to escape from that. Eastern games are thriving because they're not chasing trends or politics. They're chasing timeless experiences. They're crafting worlds that players want to revisit years from now. Not
The
just
hell is
ones
this
that are gonna give
Doctor
you
Strange
Twitter
shit?
engagement for a few weeks before fading into irrelevance. Just the topical nature of Western games is already a death sentence. I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm like, I played Borderlands 3 a few years ago, and the entire time I was playing it, I was like, dude, nobody's going to remember any of these pop culture references, any of these cringe jokes or anything like that, because it was just so...
That's the other thing too, is that the writing, like the smug jokes are so cringe in these games. It's like physically painful.
Modern day. It was so today for that game when it released, and I'm like, people aren't going to remember this stuff. I was thinking about Dragon Age the Veilguard. Do you think 20 years from now somebody's going to pick up that game and go,
Yeah, Reddit level humor. Yeah, exactly.
what are they even talking about?
Exactly.
Eastern studios have just been so much more consistent. They don't have any of that extra bullshit that's in there. We just see the normal complaints from them. I think that's another thing to think about as well. When you think about some of these Eastern studios, the vast majority of controversy that surrounds them is the normal stuff. Day one performance, patches, expansion content, microtransactions. I want to go back to those days, man. I'm getting sick and tired of talking about some of these issues with some of these Western games. You don't see their developers, their mentally ill developers going on Twitter and having a meltdown to keep their politics and their opinions out of their games and out of the public eye, and they just focus on doing their job. They let their games do the talking instead. And, oh man, their games are talking. You know, it's been a while since I've done a review. I need to do a review. I've been playing Armored Core 6 again, and it is insane
pretty fun
how
game.
good that game is. It's just,
I haven't beaten it, but it's a pretty good game.
It's absurd how good that game is and how little spotlight it got. The players that loved it, they loved it. The players that don't haven't played it yet. It's so beautiful, but they don't do anything like trying to make sure that I can see my reflection in the visor of an enemy mech or anything like that. They don't waste a bunch of time and money and resources on all these weird fidelity things that just aren't necessary for a game like that. They just make it tight controls, incredible gameplay, really good story. Heck, it's one of the best stories that I've experienced in a game over the last few years.
I remember I played it and everyone was like, oh no, Leaflet's playing this mission. She's going to feel bad when she kills this person and realizes that they're like another human. And I was like, I don't give a fuck.
A couple outliers, of course. There's some really good ones that are out there. But 90% of it was from text. Like it was just a pop-up on screen and a voice, and that was it. No cutscenes or anything like that. It wasn't necessary.
No, like you had to fight a guy, right? You're fighting a guy, like you're at war with them and you're fighting this dude, and then he like dies and he's like, no, like I'm a person or whatever. I don't remember exactly what happened, but something happened and everyone was like, don't you feel bad? You just killed him. I was like, I don't care. What the hell?
They didn't need that because they just focused on it being pure gameplay. And man, is it so good.
He was trying to kill me.
That's what these
He was trying to kill me and he lost. It's that simple.
Studios have been delivering. No nonsense, all gameplay.
It's that simple in real life too.
Give the players what they need. That's it. That's why they've been succeeding. And that's why so many of these Western games have been failing. Because, you know, I think they got comfortable. They had a stranglehold on the industry. They had more money, more developers, more resources, more experience. But now you have some of these studios that are popping up in some of these other countries that aren't under their influence. A lot of them are really inexperienced, but they got the people to be able to do it, and they're learning pretty quick. Developer tools, the barrier to entry to make a video game is way lower than it's ever been before, and that's a major threat for some of these companies. These companies that forgot how to treat us like customers. And it makes me... I was wondering why Black Myth Wukong and Stellar Blade had this weird, like, anti-Asian, anti-Chinese rhetoric among games media in a lot of different circles. I mean, like, they had the...
I thought they were so tolerant of other cultures.
You know, if you bought the game or the people that made the game successful were Chinese nationalists and the anti-woke. The reason why they say that is because it's meant to sound evil. It's meant to be disparaging. These countries have a culture that's counter to theirs. They can't let that stand. But these studios aren't just a threat because they counter their culture. They're not just a threat because of the fact that, well, their games are delivering what players want. They're a threat because they have something that the rest of the industry is going to have a real hard time with. They can make games far cheaper and far faster than anybody else in the entire industry. That's going to be a big problem because as they create more games and they overwhelm the rest of the industry, well, the rest of the industry is not going to be competing with them. They're going to be swallowed by them. Now, the rise of Eastern studios isn't just a trend. It's a foundational shift in the industry. What we're seeing right now isn't just one or two breakout hits. It's an entire new wave of studios that's stepping out onto the global stage. And the scary part is, for Western developers, they're only going to get better. Most of these companies are still in their infancy, yet they're already disrupting the market.
Again, thank you
Science,
so much.
As an example, the developers of Black Myth Wukong had never made a AAA game before, yet they produced a title that sold 20 million copies for only $43 million. Given the average salaries of Shift-Up employees, Stellar Blade cost an estimate between $40 to $50 million. Now imagine what these studios can do once they gain some more experience, more funding, and a deeper understanding of the global market.
You know what's funny?
Unlike many of these Western AAA,
it almost seems like their inexperience is actually the good thing, right? Like they're not dealing with it in the way industry does.
Studios, which have been floundering despite
the
decades
mainstream
of experience,
industry.
These new developers aren't starting with bad habits. They're building up from a lean, focused,
exactly.
approach. One of the biggest advantages for a lot of these Eastern studios is just cost efficiency. The Western gaming industry is drowning in ballooning development costs, with AAA games exceeding $200 to $500 million budgets. We're seeing longer development cycles, higher failure rates, and lower margins, yet somehow these guys keep spending and inflating their budgets even more instead of actually refining their gameplay. In contrast, Eastern studios are operating on a fraction of the cost, yet delivering polished, high-quality games that rival or surpass that of their Western counterparts. And I think the reasons for this are pretty straightforward. They have a focused design philosophy. Eastern studios are prioritizing gameplay first rather than overproduced cinematics and unnecessary bloat. Their teams are more efficient. They're not building massive bloated development teams that take years to onboard and years to manage.
I
Their
originally
production is disciplined without the need for endless games as a service monetization models. They're just focused on delivering a complete experience. And what's really scary for a lot of these Western publishers is that not only are these Eastern studios going to get better at their jobs, they're going to get more efficient over time. There's no denying that in some of these Eastern countries that they have lax labor laws that allow for faster, more demanding work cycles. It's not a good thing from an ethical standpoint, but it's an advantage when it comes to pure production output. Beyond that, something else that works to their favor is that workplace culture in many of these Eastern studios rejects the Western industry's obsession with toxic positivity. The idea
That and DEI too. They're going to hire whoever's the best at these studios. They don't care about
work
quotas.
must be praised, all criticism must be soft, and nobody can ever be called out for doing a bad job because in Eastern studios, criticism is direct and result driven. If you mess up, you're told directly. There's no hand-holding, no excuses, no performative social media activism. Employees are expected to improve. Bad work doesn't just get a pass because it aligns with corporate social agendas.
Yep.
The game is always the priority. Personal beliefs and cultural narratives don't override the responsibility to deliver a great product. Compare this to the West, where some developers are spending more time policing their communities rather than making better games. You've got studios that are hiring based on ideological alignment rather than skill, fearful of offending social media mobs, and constantly engaging in PR firefighting rather than focusing on making something great. Eastern developers don't have that problem. There's another huge advantage that these Chinese studios have in particular, and it's access to one of the largest gaming markets on the planet, while Western studios don't. Many Western AAA games don't release in China due to strict censorship laws or a lack of appeal to Chinese audiences. That artificially handicaps Western studios, while Chinese studios have no problem releasing their games both
That's bad, by the way. I don't like that.
domestically and internationally.
I don't like that. That basically China has an out. They have a lot of influence and censorship.
Look at Black Myth Wukong. 75% of its sales came from China alone, yet it still pulled in millions.
I mean, it's like it makes it so you can't do things that offend China, basically.
Of Western players. Now imagine what happens when a Chinese studio makes a game that's even better, with higher global appeal, and also at less than half of the development cost of a Western AAA game. That's where things get really dangerous for Western developers. These developers aren't just a threat because they're
How do you fight that? It's hard, really. It's just indie games, really, that can help fight it.
making games that
Supporting indie games that, have content like that.
players want. They're a threat because they're only going to get better at it. They're going to get more experience. They're going to get more funding. They're going to learn from their mistakes. They're going to make games faster, and they're going to make them cheaper. Western studios can barely keep up as is, and they're already at a financial disadvantage. The fact that Eastern studios can produce high-quality games at a fraction of the cost and twice as fast is likely going to create an entire industry shakeup. If a Western studio needs $300 million in 6 years to make a game, but an Eastern studio can do it for $50 million and in half the time, who do you think is going to win in the long run? While many may see this as spelling doom for the industry as we know it, I see it as a rebirth and potentially the start of something greater. Bigger Western studios will be forced to do better, to be better. They'll have to be smarter with their spending, focus on the right things, and going back to paying attention to the audience and
Back to
meeting
the
needs
basics.
that aren't met. Sure, some studios are going to get caught in the undertow, but many studios are going to restructure and reprioritize, and with the rise of some of these Eastern studios, it's going to come
Honestly, good. I feel like all of these big studios that are not able to adapt and all they do is like push this bullshit that no one wants, they should sink, honestly. They should like sink and fail. And then studios that are able to adapt and like actually make their stuff like actually care about the actual gamers when they make the stuff, those ones should take their place.
new perspectives on how to make games, how to create new genres, and how to create customer satisfaction. One of the things I brought up in my review of Black Myth Wukong was how appreciative I was of being able to learn more about Chinese culture. A lot of people outside of China have little...
I wonder, guys, how much of this do you think is on purpose? Do you think this is on purpose, that like they basically are like, hey, you know how we can influence people in the world to like love us more is if we make really cool games about our culture. We don't add any of that bullshit, and then we get all the kids to play it, and then when they grow up, they're gonna like China. And that like they basically, like, the government is like subsidizing it. Do you think it's true?
To no context on its legends, history, and mythology.
Honestly, that's what I would do. If I were them and I wanted to like
That's literally
culturally,
what TikTok is doing.
yeah, if I wanted to culturally usurp them, I would literally do this. This would be my play.
Many Western audiences just have a surface level understanding at best. Vague concepts like the Great Wall, dynasties, and martial arts. Games have the power to change that. Black Myth Wukong wasn't just
Literally getting psyoped.
a game, it was a bridge. It introduced millions of players to a rich cultural history that they may have not have explored otherwise. And this is where things get really interesting for me, because
idiocy is
while
a better
exposure to new
explanation.
cultures through art can be a beautiful thing,
Could be that too. Optimistic, it could be. But I like the good old conspiracy theory sometimes. Like to like kind of think about it, you know.
I just hate
China's gaming
communists.
industry isn't just any industry. It operates under the watchful eye of its
Thanks for the follow.
government. And that comes with baggage. No references to Taiwan, Tibet, Tiananmen Square, no sensitive religious or political imagery, no blood, suggestive themes, or excessive brutality. This isn't just speculation. Western companies have already censored themselves to stay in the Chinese market. Blizzard suspended a Hearthstone player for supporting the Hong Kong protests. Hollywood studios regularly edit their films to appease Chinese censorship.
Something is missing in these posters. Something is missing in these posters. I spy something missing. Do you see it?
NBA teams scrambled to apologize after comments supporting Hong Kong
That's fucked up. That's fucked up.
went viral. Hell, there's a ton of things that you can't even say in Marvel Rivals.
Yeah, if you guys want to see like actual racist content, you should watch some like Asian commercials. They're crazy. There's like the washing machine one, and then dude. Oh yeah, and then there's also videos of like the basketball teams going to China and just getting yelled at. It's crazy.
In-game chat. I know a lot of people are going to have concerns about China's growing influence in the gaming industry. We're all aware.
Yeah, and then what? And then they want to call us racist in America? Like, you're fucking crazy. Like, you're
of
crazy.
Chinese censorship, propaganda, and soft power strategies. So it's understandable to wonder whether gaming is going to face that.
That's what I said, because everyone keeps saying that America is so racist, that we're just such a racist country. It's like, bro, you've never been to Asia, have you? If you think that America is the most racist place on earth, you have not been to any other country. Leave the West for a second. Go to a country that's not in the West, and then tell me what you think.
Same fate. But call me an idealist, I think that China's success in gaming might actually lead to a crack in that armor. We're already starting to see signs of that shift, because Black Myth Wukong
Master Andy says Asian racism is ranked mode.
actually lead to a crack in that armor. We're already starting to see signs of that shift, because Black Myth Wukong, while the game was toned down in China,
We've been playing fucking casuals on normals the whole time. We thought we knew the game. We thought we were the best, but we're not.
in its Western release, it still featured intense action, blood effects, and darker themes. This suggests that Chinese developers,
Platinum rank.
when targeting a global market, are prioritizing Western audiences' expectations over domestic restrictions.
No, it's not just Asia. It's a lot of places in the world are like way more racist than America. It's kind of crazy, like how like America gets shamed for all of this racism shit when it's not real. Like, none of it is real. Like, sure, are there racists in America? Yeah. Are there KKK people in America? Yeah. Literally no one takes them seriously. Literally no one cares. Yeah, are there neo-Nazis in America? Yeah, yes. Literally, who cares about them? They have no power. They have literally no power. The mainstream people in America are not racist. Like, it's crazy. It's just ignorant of the rest of the world to think that America is super racist. It's one of the most accepting places on this planet.
If they want games to sell worldwide, they can't afford to be completely sanitized. The more success they find outside of China, the more likely these studios are to push back against censorship, or at the very least, create separate versions for those games to appeal to broader audiences.
The average level of racism in other countries is way higher than America.
And this is what makes the future of Chinese gaming so fascinating to me, because as their industry grows internationally, the pressure to loosen creative restrictions is only going to increase. Right now, China's biggest weakness in this market is its own government-imposed limitations on creative expression. If their developers want to compete at the highest level, they have two choices: either ease censorship to stand alongside Western and Japanese studios, or remain shackled by their government oversight, preventing them from ever reaching their full potential. For all the concerns about censorship, market influence, and industry shifts, there's something undeniably exciting about what's happening. Gaming is evolving in a way that we never could have predicted, and at the center of it all, well, we're witnessing a genuine cultural shift, one that could reshape not only the industry, but the way that people from vastly different backgrounds engage with one another. People love to dismiss gaming as a pastime, but in reality, it's one of the fastest growing industries in the world. It's already overtaken movies, television, and music, and not just in revenue, but as a cultural...
It's because movies, music, those things are ahead of gaming in terms of the craziness and like the... What's the word? Like the whole messaging that people don't like. They were already ahead of the game. Gaming's catching up to it.
Influence. And with that influence comes power. The power to bridge gaps, to change perceptions, and to connect people in a way that no other medium can. This industry is changing, and as a result, we're going to get better games. We're going to get a lot more games. We're going to see new ideas, fresh perspectives, and experiences, and at the end of the day, that's all we've been asking for. Wouldn't it be wild if gaming, not politics, not
He has a really nice shirt. That's a sick shirt.
diplomacy, not think pieces from self-important journalists, was the thing that actually brought us all together? A shared love for immersive worlds, incredible storytelling, and fantastic games.
Say it again. What do you say?
Love for immersive worlds,
Immersive worlds. Okay.
incredible storytelling,
Incredible storytelling. Okay.
and fantastic games.
Fantastic games. Have you tried playing tabletop RPGs?
That was the thing that made us see
I have that all the time.
eye to eye. If art, not ideology, was the thing that actually brought us together. Deep. I know.
RPG.angelsword.com. Free to play RPG.
This is the
TTRPG.
last time that you guys are going to get anything positive from me for at least a few months, starting now. See, this is the reason why I was so upset that these studios never got a fair shake from Western journalists. It bothered the hell out of me because I viewed this as a reawakening. I viewed this as
Shameless plug.
a second chance for the industry to get itself back on track, because I think that's exactly what we're going to see.
It just updated. We released a patch last night. I added Harpy girls. You guys like harpies, right? Aren't harpies hot? They're in the game now.
We're going to see games going back to doing what they used to do before, which is connecting people, which is delivering
Yeah. Cloaca. That's right.
an experience that customers are looking forward to, helping us escape from the world and all of the bullshit that's around us. And honestly, there's so many good things that can come from this. I feel like I've only scratched the surface of some of it. If you think about it on a much broader scale, if you have all these companies that are out there, all these Eastern studios, especially if we're looking at like China and stuff like that, they're going to be able to make games faster, cheaper. We're probably going to get games cheaper because they're going to flood the market.
Harpy's
And if these
feather
games
duster.
are good, that's even better, because if they're flooding the game, they're flooding the market with good games.
The one thing that's actually stopping China right now is that, ironically, their own government, because it takes a lot of approval in order to like actually make a game studio and actually release video games. So like that's the one advantage that we have. But we're just too busy. Like we're too busy, free running ourselves.
What ends up happening is, well, supply goes up, demand is down. The prices are going to have to come down to meet the demand. We're going to see less microtransactions or cheaper microtransactions, I would hope. We're going to see game prices fall a little bit. We're going to see some of these studios tighten their budgets, tighten their britches a little bit, and actually start spending money the right way on some of these games. There's a lot of good that can come from this. And the crazy thing is that we're only seeing the first wave of some of these games. They just announced the Tides of Annihilation. I wrote that one down. That just came out of nowhere. And I think we're probably going to see more of those come out this year, more of those random announcements. Oh, hey, by the way, here's another game that looks wild out of nowhere with top tier quality. What is this? How does this even happen? And the next year is probably going to be even crazier. I'm I'm blown away by it. Look at the sheer volume of Eastern games that just came out of nowhere last year, and then now they're doing it again this year, and they're probably going to multiply it by next year. I wouldn't doubt it, especially because they've seen how much money these games can make. Black Myth Wukong brought in a ton of money. Ton. Marvel Rivals is making a boatload of cash.
Do we know how much money they've been making at Marvel Rivals? Did they release any of that?
The gacha games that they have over there, MiHoYo is making a ton of money as well. So they see the opportunity in it. They're going to invest in it. And by extension, we're just going to get more games and likely better games because they're going to see, oh, well, games of this scale, games of this quality are what actually, sell. So that's what we're going to go ahead and make. Oh, the players like this thing, we're going to go make that. This kind of loops me back to this video that I'm planning on doing relatively soon about copycat games, where you're seeing some of these studios take premises or games that, well, other studios have that they have not done a very good job with, or they haven't handled its success very well. Overwatch being a really good example of that.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what happened with Overwatch. The only reason that Marvel Rivals was able to beat Overwatch is because Overwatch basically fucked up and they lost the territory. Marvel Rivals was able to exploit their weakness.
I also think that Light of Motrium game is probably going to be relatively disruptive. What if, just a what if scenario, the game that, Horizon's tried to come out so many times that it always ends up not doing very well, mostly because it always ends up dropping in the window of some major release right next to it or whatever it might be. I also just don't think people are really all that interested in Horizon. I don't really know why. I think the premise is really cool. Maybe it's just the character. Maybe
I don't get Horizon.
I don't know what it is. Like, the players that like it, but on a broader scale, for a broader audience, the vast majority of people just aren't interested in that IP at all. But then you have this Light of Motrium. Same premise. Just throw in some Elden Ring-esque fighting mechanics and things like that. Throw in some mounts and whatnot. And players are going to eat it
Thanks
up.
for the follow, Kitsuna. Thank you.
There's something to that.
And Moonfang. Thank you.
We'll be talking about that soon. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, share it on social media.
That was a really good video.
My soft power.
It's interesting. It's interesting to think about how the game industry might shift this way. I don't know if that's a good thing. The competition is definitely a good thing, but again, like we talked about, they have a lot of power in terms of like being able to dictate like what we're allowed to see. And you already see this in like movies, right? So we'll have to see how it goes.